Hey man,
Hey, how are you, man?
we're finally we're finally doing this, huh?
Yeah.
Let's talk about ICBM. Love the song. I also love the fact that you have made an existential song that shares the same abbreviation as the intercontinental ballistic missile.
Yes.
What inspired that sort of characterization?
So, when you try and find yourself as a person, and in this case, for me, it's about like the kind of music I want to make. If I want to improve, if I want to streamline my music to be a lot less noisy, where do I draw the line of realizing that, hey, this is no longer me? Are the ideals I'm chasing something that's not in line with what I should be for myself? Then it becomes a cause for an existential issue. And it gives me a sense of anxiety when I write and discover where in this song am I not me, because I find that the songs are very personal. And when you try and realize that sense of feeling, and not everyone may sort of agree that they've probably felt that feeling. So I tried to use an analogy, and it's basically the same feeling that one would have when they're just not sure if a nuclear missile could hit at any time. You have that passive sense of anxiety, like, oh man, could this be the day?
Okay.
A bit dramatic, but yeah.
There's also that sense of world-ending paranoia as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. I guess also that shows how personal I feel about my craft. It is that close to me. I'm being that vulnerable when I write something that personal, and in a way, that's the reality.
I also like how it's probably the most unlikely love song I've ever listened to. ICBM. Talk about that.
Okay, so lyrically, it sounds like someone's chasing. There's this prey in the safari who's chasing this predator, right? And it feels a bit like unrequited love, because the reality of that statement is, it is me chasing what I perceive my ideals as a musician. And the truth is, you never know. It's not as simple as that. You never know if you've crossed that line or whether that line exists to begin with. This could all be in your own head, right? So that's why it feels a bit unrequited, because there's no real answer to this question. What you perceive yourself as who you are can at the same time just be your own evolution, and maybe you just need a bit of getting used to.
This context of you not being able to be yourself, at least in the space of the song, where do you feel it the most?
Funnily enough, it is actually in writing this whole EP, because before this EP, everything I've released was independent. Like I just put it up on a platform and tell them, can you ship this to Spotify? And that's the only responsibility behind the whole distribution aspect of the track. Whereas this time around, it's not as simplistic. So I need to work and release my music with a label. I need to also follow the wisdom of management and stuff like that. So I can't just be writing the same old stuff that can only get me so far. So I need to sort of, for the first time, because you see, you think about it, like, I write every aspect of my songs, even down to the mixing and the mastering. So it is only shipped when it's done. There's no outside voice trying to give me a bit of objectivity, and that has always been the status quo for me. This EP, on the other hand, was the first time that I am not only trying to make myself more um responsive to external opinions, but at the same time it's also the first EP that I've tried to collaborate on. So naturally speaking, there's gonna be a compromise in terms of like, you know, that dictative control over my work, and hence that's where the fear comes from. This whole EP, am I able to go through this experiment and at the end of it feel comfortable, like, hey, that's all still me, it's just an evolution of myself.
I really enjoyed the video, and I feel that one of the things that I feel adds to the song, the experience of the song, is the fact that the video is inherently humorous, right? But the song isn't.
Yeah.
Right, it's not a funny song, right? What made you want to have a funny, so to speak, a funny visual anchor the song?
I appreciate that question, really, because for the longest time I may be very broody when it comes to the writing, but there's always been a perception of how I am as a person to my friends and stuff, that I try to usually like light up the room through humor with close people, maybe not to strangers, they may not realize that, but like not only that, but like when I do like non-pertinent stuff for how, like for example, when I did the bedroom sessions before, it was just an idea I wanted to do for myself, and because of that I was allowed to not be pressured by trying to get this right, trying to get this seriously done, and I just naturally went towards my own humorous direction. And it's the same when I perform live. People always say like, you have this very awkwardly funny type vibe, but then they say when the music does come out and you have music videos that try to be a lot more philosophical than like that humor that is you, it feels like there's a detachment between the two. So what I wanted to do here was, because that whole philosophical angle with the older videos, it's not something that's not me, it's just a separate dimension, an additional dimension to what I'm doing. So I felt like, I think at the very least the humor deserves to come back at the very least for this video, and because at the same time that is me, and it's also a way of saying like, don't worry, this is all still me, you know, I can be this guy, I can still be that guy, but the message is still clear.
It's ironic that the hook is I can't be myself, but I feel like the video sort of rectifies that by having you dance, and in your dancing you are free and you are yourself. Was that intentional?
It was. See, like, you know, the narrative of the video is, you know, trying the forbidden fruit, or in this case the candy, right? And so a result of that is being possessed by a sense of confidence that's almost unnatural and like not really in line with who I naturally am. So the result of that consumption is to be that fake person. So what you did see in the dancing, which came from that point onwards, is that possessed person that I was. Whereas like, I naturally wouldn't say that statement with the tone. You know what I mean?
Right.
It would be more like a crying out kind of thing, like why can't I? But like, it almost becomes ironic from that point where it's like, this is all a joke to me. My confidence, you know, it's well above the roof at this point. This is almost just an irony of a statement. I'm above it, you know?
I feel like taken together with the video, the song, the overall song is, the outlook of the song is actually a hopeful one, because you have this one line in the video that goes, you've got to be yourself or risk losing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that makes it almost like an instructional and a hopeful song.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would say that yes and no. Because like, at that point, this, you know, what I try and do with this video as well, with Boy's video, is to a certain degree, it is me, but I also want it to also be anyone, you know. Let it be a message for anyone, you know. You don't necessarily even need to be a musician, you know, for whatever that you're trying to do for yourself. You don't want to lose yourself before it's too late. And sadly, in the case of the video, it got a bit too late, but then it also wasn't, because there's a bit of a secret here that slimy things that comes out in that animation sequence is actually the soul.
Yeah.
And by then it's too late for that person, but at the same time, it's all a dream, right? I know it's a big cop out. So
Exactly.
it's also a warning. So
but it
yeah.
It also means that now that you've experienced it in your dream, you can go and change your life to make sure you don't end up like the guy. You know,
that's true. That's true. So I guess that's true. And it needed that bit of violence to drive that point home, yes.